You stand before your God, folding your hands in prayer. But let us be completely honest for once. It is not love that brings you to your knees. It is absolute, trembling terror. Your so-called devotion is nothing but a dirty marketplace transaction, a desperate bribe to escape the fires of hell. You don't care about truth. And you certainly don't care about the divine. You are simply a coward trying to strike a clever bargain with eternity. Look deeply into your prayers. They are not songs of gratitude. They are just the trembling screams of your fear masquerading as holiness. Hello, my beloved friends. I see you sitting there, carrying an immense burden on your shoulders, a burden that does not belong to you, a burden that has been forced upon your consciousness by centuries of conditioning, by thousands of years of dark, organized structures that have terrorized your soul. You think you are seeking truth. You think you are full of faith. You think you love God. But let me tell you directly, from the very core of my being to yours, you do not love God. You cannot love God because you do not even know what love is. Your so-called love is nothing but hidden trembling. You are simply terrified of hell. You have been brought up by wolves disguised as shepherds, and they have taught you that unless you submit, unless you bend your knees, unless you deny your own life, your own body, and your own intelligence, you will be thrown into an eternal fire of torment. This is not religion. This is a psychological prison. Your faith is not a sacred surrender. It is a cold, calculated transaction. You are trying to bribe the divine to secure a comfortable seat in a fictional paradise. If these words touch a chord deep within your heart, if you can feel the truth vibrating in your own experience, I invite you to click the like button and share this stream of awareness with other sleeping souls. By subscribing to this channel, you join our caravan of rebels, a gathering of individuals who dare to open their eyes. And if you feel a deep gratitude for these insights and wish to support the continuation of this work, look at the join button on your interface. Consider offering a super thanks, or explore our beautifully crafted ebooks that serve as lanterns in the dark. This is not a marketplace, but a spontaneous sharing of love, an invitation to help this light expand across a world drowning in darkness. Look at your life. Look at the ways you pray, the ways you attend your churches, your mosques, your synagogues, and your temples. Why are you there? Is it because your heart is overflowing with an ecstatic joy that simply must express itself in gratitude? No, you go there because you are afraid. Fear is the foundation of your entire spiritual life, and a house built on fear can never become a temple of freedom. The priest and the politician have known this secret for millions of years. They know that the only way to exploit a human being is to make him lose trust in his own nature. Once you are frightened, once you begin to tremble inside, you lose your center. You become a helpless leaf, floating in the current, ready to believe any stupid nonsense that is presented to you with an air of authority. A man who has self-confidence, a man who loves his own being, can never be deceived by the charlatans of the soul. He cannot be turned into a blind follower. The dark alliance between the priest and the politician has divided you against yourself. They have created a broken house, a mind constantly at war with its own body. They tell you that your flesh is sinful, that your instincts are animalistic, that your sexuality is a curse, and that your natural desire to live comfortably and joyfully on this earth is a direct path to damnation. They have turned life into a slow death, a prolonged nightmare of suppression, and they have done it so systematically that you have become a robot, an efficient machine that reacts according to the programs it has been fed since childhood. You are not a human being yet. You are a sleepwalker. You walk down the street, you go to your office, you make love to your partner, but you are not there. Your mind is somewhere else, counting your money, planning your future, or dwelling on your past sins. You have lost the capacity for spontaneous joy, for childlike innocence, and for playful creativity. You have become dead before your body has even entered the grave. Have you ever asked yourself why man is never satisfied with who he is? Why are you always looking for something else, trying to be someone different, looking across the fence thinking that the neighbor's grass is always greener? It is because you have been completely misguided from the very beginning. You are not moving toward your own unique potential. You are trying to fulfill the expectations of your parents, your teachers, your priests, and your society. You are wearing a smiling mask to deceive the world, while inside you are hollow, empty, and suffering. And because everyone else is also wearing a smiling mask, you are deceived by their distance. You think they are happier than you, so you run faster in the competitive race for wealth, success, power, and respectability. But it is a race that leads nowhere. Nature has no concept of money. Dollars do not grow on trees. Money is a human invention, useful as a tool, but highly dangerous when it becomes a goal for your existence. When you see a rich man, you think money brings joy, so you sacrifice your life to accumulate gold. But you never see the inner poverty of that rich man, his absolute emptiness, his terrible anxiety. I tell you, you are enough. Exactly as you are absolute perfection. Existence does not create anything imperfect. If existence wanted another Jesus Christ, it would have created one. If it wanted another Gautama Buddha, another Krishna, or another Moses, they would be here. But existence chose to create you. You are needed by this vast universe. Otherwise, you would not be here. Your first and only responsibility is not to a nation, not to a religion, not to a holy book, but to your own being. You must learn to love yourself, because unless you love yourself, you can never love anyone else. You have been taught that self-love is selfish, that it is sinful, and that you must sacrifice yourself for stupid ideas like a flag, a nation, or a doctrine. A flag is nothing but a rotten piece of cloth, yet millions of men have died for it. A nation is a fiction drawn on a map by politicians to divide the earth, yet generations have slaughtered each other to defend those arbitrary lines. This is not sacrifice. It is a glorified suicide, a madness generated by those who thrive on your blood. The strategy of organized religion is very subtle and very cruel. They crush your innocence because your innocence makes you independent. A child is born like a blank sheet of paper, completely clean, beautifully empty. There is nothing written on his soul, no Bible, no Quran, no Gita, no Communist manifesto. He arrives with an immense capacity to wonder, to laugh, to dance, and to experience the sheer ecstasy of being alive. But the moment he takes his first breath, the wolves jump upon him. Parents, teachers, and priests begin to write their dogmas, their rules, and their morality on that clean sheet. They tell the child what is right and what is wrong, what he must do and what he must not do. They clip his wings and then expect him to fly toward the stars. They put the young tree into a bottomless pot, and every time its roots try to grow deeply into the earth, they cut them. This is pure murder, the spiritual assassination of humanity. Think about the story of the Garden of Eden. It is a story that reveals the true character of the God created by the priests. This God tells Adam and Eve that they can eat from any tree in the garden except two, the tree of knowledge and the tree of life. What kind of a father would deny his children wisdom and eternal life? He wants them to remain ignorant, blind, and dependent, simple domestic animals who will worship him out of fear. But the poor serpent, who has been cursed by the priests for centuries, was the first true friend of humanity. He was compassionate. He saw the situation and told Eve that God was simply jealous, terrified that if they ate from those trees, they would become wise and eternal, equal to him. The serpent encouraged disobedience, and it was through that act of disobedience that man achieved his true dignity. Disobedience is the very foundation of freedom. The true religious man is a rebel, a man who refuses to follow the herd, a man who says a categorical no to all institutional interests. But you have been conditioned to worship the enemy and condemn the friend. You say, "Thank God," when you should be saying, "Thanks to the serpent." Because of the priest, you live in a constant state of self-hatred. You accept the idea that you are a sinner, born in original sin, and that you are utterly worthless on your own. And out of this deep sense of unworthiness, the Savior becomes necessary. The messiahs, the popes, the gurus get bigger and bigger as you get smaller and smaller. They promise to save you, but they are the ones who drowned you in the first place. They have never allowed you to learn how to swim, and now they sell you the illusion of a life jacket. They thrive on a very subtle psychological exploitation, a massive trade secret that keeps their bank accounts full and their empires powerful. The Vatican recently issued a decree reminding Catholics that they must not confess directly to God. They must go to the confessional box. They must speak to the priest. Why? Because if you can relate to the divine directly, if you can open your heart to existence without a mediator, the priest becomes obsolete. The entire religious industry goes bankrupt. The priest has nothing to offer you but hot air. Yet he demands your money, your submission, and your freedom. He stands like the wall of China between your heart and the stars. He wants to control your conscience, to decide what is good and bad for you, to tell you how to live, how to die, and how to love. Look at the sacred scriptures that you revere. Look at them with clear, unclouded eyes, free from the dust of faith. They are full of childish, primitive nonsense. The Vedas of the Hindus, which are claimed to be written by God Himself, are mostly filled with prayers of priests asking for their cows to give more milk, or begging for the rain to fall on their fields and avoid the fields of their enemies. Will God write such greedy, petty things? The holy books are full of obscenity, violence, and historical errors, yet they are kept wrapped in beautiful silk cloth, written in dead languages like Sanskrit, Latin, or Hebrew, so that the common people cannot understand their true contents. The priests have always been terrified of translation, terrified of printing, because they know that once the book is open, the magic is gone. The holiness will turn out to be nothing but ancient ignorance. True religion does not need a book. Existence itself is the only real scripture. The sunset, the sunrise, the clouds moving in the blue sky, the birds singing in the morning, the flowers blooming in the garden, this is the true sermon. It was not prepared by a stupid theologian in a dark room. It is alive, vibrant, and happening all around you. You only need to trust yourself, which is another name for loving yourself. When you trust your own heart, you assume the total responsibility for your life. You stop throwing the blame on fate, on God, on society, or on Adam and Eve. This gives you an immense internal strength, an unbreakable integration. A man who stands on his own feet can never be enslaved again. He becomes dangerous to the establishment, dangerous to the politicians who want soldiers for their wars, and dangerous to the priests who want followers for their churches. Let me tell you about Socrates, a man who loved his own individuality so deeply that he chose to drink poison rather than stop speaking the truth. The court of Athens, a democratic city filled with mediocre people, decided that he was dangerous. His crime was that he was making the youth rebellious, skeptical, and independent. They gave him alternatives: leave the city and never return, or stay and remain completely silent. But Socrates refused. He said that if he were alive, he would continue to speak the truth until his very last breath. He took the total responsibility for his death. He did not blame the judges. He did not blame the public. He said, "I am responsible for my own destiny." When the executioner was late in preparing the poison, Socrates was anxious, eager to taste the mystery of death. He said, "I have known life. It was beautiful. Now I want to know what death is. If my soul continues in another form, it will be a great adventure. If everything ends, it will be a deep, peaceful rest, an absence of being. Why should I worry?" This is the dignity of a true human being. If the earth were full of individuals like Socrates, this world would become a paradise of ecstasy, a celebration of consciousness. But you are terrified of this freedom. You prefer the safety of the prison, the comfort of the crowd. You call yourself a Christian, a Muslim, a Hindu, a communist. These are not names of honor. These are the names of your cages. You belong to a herd because you are afraid to stand alone in the immense mystery of existence. You want a ready-made program, a set of rules that will tell you how to behave so that you don't have to use your own intelligence. But a life lived according to a program is a mechanical life. You are just a parrot repeating words you do not understand. To help this message of freedom reach more hearts, remember to engage with this video. Leave a comment below with your deepest reflections. Let me know how these insights strike your soul. Share this with your friends, your family, your fellow seekers, so that we can create a wave of awakening. If you wish to be a pillar of this growing commune, click that join button to become a member, or express your gratitude through a super thanks. You can also explore our ebooks. which are written to guide you deeper into the silent spaces of your own being. Let this support be a beautiful flow of energy between us, a gesture of love for truth. The priest has made you feel guilty about your natural instincts, particularly your sexuality. This biological energy is the very source of life, the basic energy of your biological existence. Every cell in your body is a sex cell. You were conceived in a deep, passionate act of love, not during a church service or a theological lecture. Yet, you have been taught to look at sex as something dirty, ugly, and animalistic. This condemnation creates a terrible division inside you. Your biology wants one thing, and your religious conditioning demands another. You become schizophrenic, constantly fighting your own energy. And what is the result of this suppression? You don't transcend sex. You simply become obsessed with it. You become deeply divided, a highly obsessed mind trapped in your own thoughts, while pretending to be celibate and pure on the surface. Look at the history of Christian monasteries and convents. They are full of neurosis, madness, and psychological distortions. Celibacy is completely unscientific. It goes against the very laws of physiology. Your body produces sperm continuously, regardless of whether you are a monk or an ordinary man. If you don't allow it to be released naturally and lovingly, it accumulates in the unconscious, creating wounds, obsessions, and violence. The celibate saints have contributed nothing to human wisdom, art, music, or joy. They have only contributed guilt, misery, and diseases like AIDS, which is a direct consequence of unnatural sexual suppression. Hugh Hefner and the creators of adult industry are not the enemies of the church. They are their business partners. They thrive on the same coin. The priest creates the suppression, and the adult entertainment industry creates the outlet for that suppressed energy. They look like enemies, but behind the scenes, they support each other's trade. If the churches disappear tomorrow, sensual media will die instantly. It cannot exist in a natural, healthy society where nudity and sexuality are accepted with simple grace, just like the trees, the animals, and the birds. No one looks at a naked tiger or a bare tree and calls it obscene. It is only the insane human mind, corrupted by religious education, that finds dirt in the beautiful architecture of nature. Tantra, the ancient science of transformation, offers a completely different vision. It does not ask you to suppress your sexual energy, but to understand it, to live it naturally, and to elevate it to the level of a prayer. Sex can become a bridge to the divine. In the ordinary sexual act, you are simply looking for a relief, a release of tension, like a good sneeze. It is therapeutic, a natural tranquilizer, but it is brief, lasting only a few seconds, leaving you exhausted and often depressed. But Tantra teaches the valley of peak ecstasy, a state of deep, relaxed communion where there is no hurry for ejaculation, no frantic movement, but a silent, loving melt between the masculine and feminine energies. You can remain in that embrace for hours, revitalizing each other, entering into a profound meditation where time disappears, where the ego dissolves, and where you touch the very boundaries of eternity. This is your birthright, but the priest has stolen it from you, leaving you with nothing but guilt and frustration. You must drop this perverted ideology if you want to find your true self. You must say goodbye to the priest inside your unconscious. This requires an immense inner courage, a willingness to be a pagan, a child running after butterflies, drinking the juice of every moment without any theory, without any theology. A happy man, a man who laughs from his very belly, cannot be controlled by the state or the church. He is too alive, too rebellious. The establishment needs miserable people, sad people, heavy souls, because only they are obedient, only they can be marched into wars to slaughter other innocent people in the name of democracy or God or the motherland. Look at the political leaders of the world. They are completely insane, preparing atomic bombs, hydrogen superbombs, building mountains of weapons that can destroy this beautiful earth 700 times over. People are starving in Ethiopia. Half of India is on the verge of death. Yet the Indian government exports wheat to buy nuclear technology and military equipment so they can compete in this absurd race of destruction. This is all happening in the name of altruism, in the name of serving the nation. I tell you, be absolutely selfish. Love yourself. Take care of your own intelligence. Find your own joy. When your cup is full of happiness, it will naturally overflow. You will have so much love to share that the act of giving will become your ultimate celebration. True altruism is nothing but a byproduct of intense self-love. Stop reacting to life like a machine. A machine only reacts based on its past programming. If your wife says something and you immediately fly into a rage, using the same old words, the same old tone, you are just a computer running a program. The Sufis say that man is a machine, a robot that sleeps throughout his life. Unless you introduce consciousness into your actions, you will remain a slave to habit. Today, try something different. Break the program. If your partner starts a fight, don't defend yourself with your usual arguments. Bring her flowers. Give her a deep, loving kiss, or look into her eyes with absolute silence. Shock the machine. When the mechanical mind is shocked, it stops for a moment, and in that gap, consciousness enters. Action is born in the present moment. Reaction is just a corpse from the past. Live a life of response, not reaction. The division within you between what you are and what you should be is the root of all your psychological pain. Pain means division. Happiness means unity. When you are sad, accept your sadness completely. Say, right now, I am sadness. Don't try to force a fake smile on your face to please the neighbors or your customers. A fake smile turns you into an imposter, and society loves imposters. It turns them into saints and leaders. But if you accept your sadness without any interpretation, without the motivation to change it into happiness, a miraculous door opens. The conflict disappears, the division fades away, and you experience a profound relaxation. Relaxation is grace. Relaxation is joy. Joy is not a goal that you can achieve through effort. It is a natural consequence of being one with your present reality. You must drop all your ideals, all your commandants, all your concepts of perfection. They are the weapons used by the priests to cripple your soul. They turn you against your own body, your own heart, and your own instincts. They make you a tourist in your own existence, always searching for a destination in the future, while the treasure is hidden right here in the immediate present. The immediate is the supreme. God is not sitting in heaven, He is here, breathing through your lungs, beating through your heart, looking through your eyes. You are already in paradise, but you have forgotten how to open your eyes because you are too busy looking at the maps provided by the blind leaders of the blind. Come back home. Come back to your own source. Respect your own unique individuality. Dare to take the risk of being yourself, independent of the crowd, independent of the herd. The crowd may condemn you, they may crucify you, they may call you eccentric or mad. But to be a happy, integrated individual is the greatest blessing in existence. Even on the cross, you will be satisfied, overflowing with compassion for those who are spiritually asleep. Do not be a businessman trading your life for respectability. Be a player, putting everything at stake for the ecstasy of the unknown. Drop your masks, burn your fictions, and let your original face shine in all its pristine beauty. The door is open right now, here and now. Walk through it and claim your kingdom. This split within you is not an accidental occurrence. It is a deliberate, highly calculated strategy designed to keep you crippled, to keep you processing life through a permanent state of guilt. The moment you are divided against yourself, Your vital energy is dissipated in an internal friction. You have no energy left to rebel, no energy left to declare your absolute freedom. You become a house divided against itself. And a broken house is easy to rule, easy to exploit. The priest provides you with grand, distant ideals of how you should be, how you have to behave, what you must accomplish to be considered virtuous. They condition your eyes to look perpetually toward a distant sky, toward a future perfection, so that you completely lose sight of the ground you are standing on. Your language becomes saturated with phrases like, "I must do this," or "I have to be that." But reality knows nothing of obligation. Reality knows no duty. Look at a rose. A rose is simply a rose. It does not try to become a lotus flower, nor does a lotus flower spend its nights weeping because it cannot turn into a rose. They are not neurotic. They do not require a psychiatrist. They do not need psychoanalysis because they are deeply anchored in their own immediate being. The rose is healthy because it simply lives its truth in the here and now. But man is taught to live in a perpetual conflict between his actual being and his idealized should. The should and the be are eternal enemies. And as long as you are trapped in this antagonism, you will remain a stranger to yourself. It is an absolute truth that you can only be that which you are, and never anything else. The moment this realization deepens in your heart, all the heavy, imposed ideals drop away automatically like dry leaves from a tree. And when there is no ideal, the artificial division vanishes. You become a unified, whole entity. If this resonance of wholeness touches something deep within you, take a moment to reflect on it in the comment section below, sharing your personal journey of shifting from who you were told to be to who you truly are. Your insights become a beautiful mirror for this entire gathering of seekers. This first step of absolute acceptance is the most difficult because of the extensive civilizing efforts that have been forced upon you. For instance, consider the feeling of sadness. When sadness descends upon you, your entire conditioning immediately screams that you must not be sad, that sadness is negative, that you have to put on a cheerful face and smile. This is where the schizophrenia begins. The truth of the moment is that you are experiencing sadness, but your mind demands a false presentation. You feel forced to print a fake smile upon your lips, to act, to pretend. And the tragedy is that this plastic imposter is highly appreciated by society. The imposter is praised as a saint, the actor is chosen as a leader, and the masses begin to follow a shadow. How can you ever hope to know yourself if you are constantly repressing your actual being to maintain a mask. To break this chain, you must live your sadness with absolute authenticity. Do not say that sadness is something separate from you. Stand as the sadness itself. Say to yourself, right now, I am this sadness. Live it without any motivation to escape it, without the hidden desire to turn it into joy. If you accept it with total gratitude, you will be astounded by the sudden relaxation that enters your being. The psychological pain exists only because of your interpretation that the feeling is wrong. Anger is not inherently painful. It is the concept that anger is sinful that creates your deep internal anxiety. The raw fact is always liberating. Just as the ancient masters have always reminded us that the truth sets you free. But you cannot just know the truth as an objective text. You must become the truth itself. This deep transformation requires you to dismantle the mechanical habits that have turned you into a machine. The world does not want human beings. It wants highly efficient robots that are obedient, predictable, and subservient. The more mechanical you are, the more respectable you become in the eyes of the establishment. From the very beginning, as a fragile child, you realized that the forces surrounding you were too immense to fight. You learned that saying no was dangerous, that disobedience was labeled as the original sin, and that total surrender was the only path to safety. So, you closed the doors of your perception. You repressed your wild intelligence and found it safer to act as if you were ignorant, slowly turning into an actor who follows orders blindly. If you look closely at your daily interactions, you will find that almost all your actions are not authentic expressions, but mere mechanical reactions. You repeat the same arguments with your partner, using the same predictable phrases, ending up in the exact same state of misery year after year. It is a pre-programmed loop. To break this automatization, you must consciously choose to do the unexpected. If you are accustomed to walking fast when you are anxious, slow down your pace to an absolute crawl and watch how the mechanical mind gets completely confused. It has no ready-made script for this new behavior. This is the very essence of true meditation, a process of de-automatizing the human entity so that the pristine springs of your life can flow freely once more. For those who wish to delve into the practical steps of this deconditioning process, exploring the hidden maps of consciousness we have carefully gathered in our exclusive ebooks can provide a clear lantern for your internal journey. These digital texts are crafted not to give you more theories, but to help you dissolve the old ones, and your purchase directly supports the expansion of this temple of awareness. When you begin to act from a space of spontaneous awareness rather than old habitual conditioning, you step out of the crowd. You cease to be a member of a flock. The crowd never forgives an individual who dares to be happy, because your joy creates an immense envy in the hearts of those who live in perpetual misery. The masses cannot tolerate a person who dances in the street, who laughs without a functional reason, because it exposes the worthlessness of their own plastic existence. They will label you as weird, as rebellious, as a dangerous element. But to fall in love with rebellion is to step upon the true path of godliness. It is an immense risk, a dangerous way to live, but it is the only way to experience eternity in a single, fleeting moment. You must stop acting like a calculated businessman in the realm of the soul. You must become a wild player who puts everything into the game, reserving nothing for the next moment. Consider how the institution of family has been used to perpetuate this mechanical slavery. The family is a restricted, highly controlled prison designed to program each new child with the specific prejudices, superstitions, and nationalistic dogmas of the past. You are taught to believe rather than to know. Belief is a poor substitute for direct experience. A blind man can believe in the light. He can study theories of color, but it will never give him eyes to see the radiant splendor of a sunset. Every belief system is an absolute obstacle to true spirituality. The family fills your young mind with artificial ambitions, urging you to become a celebrity, a politician, a wealthy executive, without ever realizing that these ambitions are a direct recipe for permanent anxiety. Only one person can be the president of a country, leaving millions to live with a deep, crushing sense of failure. This competitive structure is the foundation of all human pathology. If you feel the call to transcend these ancient traps, to support the continuity of these discourses, so that this light can reach the furthest corners of this sleeping planet, consider clicking the join button on your screen to become an active part of our inner circle. By becoming a member, or by offering a gesture of abundance through the super thanks feature, you help us maintain this oasis of freedom in a world that is running headlong toward global suicide. Your contribution is not a transaction. It is a spontaneous sharing of energy, a way to ensure that the voice of rebellion remains alive for all who are searching for their original face. We must understand that our current world is suffering not from its own sins, but from the heavy weight of dead centuries. The politicians and the priests are leading humanity toward a general global war, an absolute suicide. They have accumulated enough weapons to destroy this planet hundreds of times over. Yet poor, starving nations continue to pour their treasures into atomic energy and deadly devices just to compete in this insane race for power. They have sacrificed the living present for a fictional tomorrow, an opium that keeps the masses in a drugged, manageable state. But tomorrows never come. The only reality is the immediate here and now. If you want to find the ultimate truth, you do not need to fly to the clouds or hide in a mountain cave. You must look directly into the mirror of your daily relationships. The relationship is the only true testing ground of your meditation. If your meditation is deep, your relationships will undergo a total revolution. The desire to possess, to dominate, to control another human being will completely dissolve. Possessiveness is a form of violence, a declaration that you look at the other as an object rather than a living soul. When you love an individual, you give them absolute freedom to be themselves. You do not demand that they conform to your expectations. If a man can learn to sit in silence with his beloved, simply holding her hand without a single word of calculation passing through his mind, a profound alchemy takes place. The body becomes radiant, the aura expands, and the entire space is transformed into a sacred temple. But the male ego, which has been artificially cultivated for thousands of years out of a deep inferiority complex, finds it very difficult to accept this equality. Because man cannot give birth, because he realized that the feminine energy is naturally more patient, more resilient, and more balanced, he used his muscular force to crush the woman, to confine her to a lower status, to deny her economic and educational freedom. He turned marriage into a political defense mechanism, believing that the best form of defense is a constant attack. He condemned all feminine qualities, love, trust, beauty, sincerity, intuition, labeling them as signs of weakness, while glorifying the brutal, animalistic traits of aggression and power. But the future belongs to the feminine energy. If this planet is to be saved from the madness of war, the sun must yield some ground to the moon. The sun has become too hot, too destructive. We must bring the moon back to life, nourishing our collective soul with poetry, aesthetics, and silent contemplation. This internal balance between the masculine and feminine poles is the ultimate goal of all true spiritual practice. You are not just a man or just a woman. You are a beautiful synthesis of both. Half of your being comes from your father and half from your mother. When these two internal currents stop fighting, when they dissolve into each other in a state of deep, meditative passivity. You achieve the state of individual integration. You become an emperor of your own inner kingdom, completely independent of the opinions, criticisms, or praise of the outside world. You no longer walk through life as a beggar, crying out for attention, because you have discovered the inexhaustible treasure hidden within your own silent center. You become a true warrior of consciousness, acting with total spontaneity, meeting each moment with a fresh, unclouded intelligence that leaves no chains behind. If you have traveled with me through this stream of awareness, ensure that you are subscribed to this channel so you do not miss the upcoming flows of our caravan. Click the like button to let the algorithms know that truth still matters on this earth. And share this video with those who are tired of their cages. Let us continue to walk together, dropping our masks step by step, until nothing remains but the pure, innocent sky of our essential being. Dangerously, I mean a complete dissolution of your security structures. Security is an illusion created by a frightened mind that cannot face the immense, wild unpredictability of existence. The mind is always seeking a guarantee, always asking for an insurance policy, always trying to protect itself against the vastness of life. It builds a beautiful house, creates a comfortable bank balance, gets a respectable marriage certificate, and joins a well-known church. And then it sits inside this fort, looking out at the world, feeling very safe. But let me ask you a simple question. What kind of life is this? It is not life at all. It is just a prolonged, comfortable way of vegetating. The safest place on the face of the earth is a cemetery. In a cemetery, nothing ever goes wrong. No one falls sick, no one goes bankrupt, no one loses their job, and no one ever suffers from a broken heart. The dead are perfectly secure because they have already crossed the boundary where danger exists. If you are seeking absolute security, you are simply asking for a comfortable grave before your time has come. Life thrives only in insecurity, only in the dangerous spaces where everything is constantly at risk. The moment you step into the unknown, your intelligence reaches its peak. Your awareness becomes sharp, vibrant, and alive like a clean flame. Think about the individuals who climb high mountains or explore dangerous paths. Why do they do it? It is because when they are suspended between life and death, when a single wrong step means absolute destruction, the past vanishes, the future disappears. The heavy dust of your conditioning is washed away in a single moment, and only the pure, intense present remains. You are completely alive, breathing the fresh air of the immediate now. But you don't need to go to the mountains to find this intensity. You can bring this warrior quality into your psychological and spiritual life every single day. You only need to drop your reliance on the familiar. You only need to stop hiding behind the traditions, the rules, and the ready-made formulas provided by the priests. The priest is always standing at the gate of the unknown, offering you an easy escape from the danger of freedom. He tells you that if you follow his book, if you repeat his prayers, if you believe in his dogmas, your soul is safe. But his safety is a spiritual trap. It is a slow poisoning that destroys your capacity to think, your capacity to feel, and your capacity to look into your own depths. The holy books are full of ancient words written by men who died centuries ago, yet you revere them as the absolute word of God. You carry them like a shield to protect yourself against the living reality of existence. But reality is fluid, dynamic, changing every single moment. You cannot catch the ocean in a small net of words. You cannot contain the infinite mystery of life inside a dead doctrine. The moment you substitute direct experience with a belief, you become a consumer of illusions. You start living a second-hand life, a plastic existence that has no roots in your own heart. Look at the ways you behave when you are challenged by life. Your mind immediately runs to the past to find a ready-made answer. If you are hurt, you react with anger because that is the program you have been given. If you are lonely, you look for a distraction because you have never learned the art of being alone with joy. You are simply a machine running on old, recycled tracks. And the priest wants you to remain a machine because a machine never asks dangerous questions. A machine never declares its independence. A machine is always predictable, obedient, and easy to govern. But you are not a machine. You are a seed of infinite potentiality, born to blossom into a beautiful, unrepeatable individual. To realize this potential, you must be willing to risk everything. You must be willing to lose your respectability, your reputation, your false personality, and your safe beliefs. You must have the courage to walk into the dark night of your own soul without a map, relying solely on your own inner light. This spiritual risk is the only true path to awakening. It is the transition from a state of mechanical reaction to a space of spontaneous awareness. When you are alert, when you look at life with fresh eyes, you begin to see that all your problems are created by your own internal division. You are constantly fighting against your own nature, trying to suppress your desires, trying to control your energy, trying to become someone else. This internal warfare is what the priest calls morality. He tells you that if you fight your body, you will become a saint. But I tell you, you will only become a frustrated, neurotic hypocrite. You cannot transform your energy by fighting it. You can only transform it by understanding it, by accepting it with love and gratitude. Anger can be transformed into compassion. Lust can be converted into love, and greed can blossom into a deep sharing. But this transformation is possible only if you are deeply rooted in your own being. A small anecdote will help you understand the sheer absurdity of the mechanical mind that lives on the periphery. A wealthy businessman was walking through a beautiful garden, and he noticed a simple gardener sitting under a tree doing absolutely nothing. The gardener looked incredibly peaceful, completely relaxed, watching the clouds move across the sky. The businessman felt irritated because for him, time is money. He could not understand how anyone could waste precious moments in such a useless way. He walked up to the gardener and said, "Why are you sitting here like an idiot? Why don't you work harder, expand this garden, grow more flowers, and sell them in the market?" The gardener looked up with a gentle smile and asked, "And for what purpose?" The businessman said, "Then you will earn more money. You will be able to buy a big house, employ many servants, and build a massive enterprise." The gardener asked again, "And after that, what will happen?" The businessman laughed and said, "Then you will be rich, you will have no worries, and you will be able to sit down and relax and enjoy life." The gardener looked at him and said, "But that is exactly what I am doing right now. Why should I go through all that madness just to arrive at the same spot?" The businessman represents the performing mind, the achieving mind that is always running toward a future goal, completely missing the treasure of the present moment. He thinks that happiness is a commodity that can be purchased at the end of a long journey of struggle and competition. But the gardener represents the meditative mind, the mind that knows that life is not a business, but a cosmic game. He is content with the simple fact of existing, completely available to the beauty of the here and now. The priest and the politician have trained you to be like the businessman. They have filled your head with ambitions, with duties, with targets, so that you are always in a hurry, always running from one place to another, chasing an illusion. And because you are always running, you are never home when life comes and knocks on your door. You are always somewhere else, in Kathmandu, in Goa, or in Philadelphia, but never here, never now. This constant race for achievement is what keeps you poor. What keeps you dependent on the opinions of others? You have become a beggar for attention because you do not know your own inner worth. You look into the eyes of the crowd to find your face, and you accept their criticism or their praise as your reality. If they tell you that you are good, you feel happy. If they ignore you, you feel lost. Your personality is nothing but a reflection of the arbitrary opinions of a sleeping world. It is a house built on sand, a signature written on water. True individuality has nothing to do with reputation or respectability. It is a radiance that sprouts from your own silent center when you stop looking for validation from the outside. When you discover your own essential nature, the opinions of the whole world become completely irrelevant. Even if the entire humanity forgets your name, it does not make the slightest difference to your inner ecstasy. You are grounded in eternity, self-contained and whole. To arrive at this center, you must learn the art of being silent, peaceful, and quiet. You must enter the state of no mind, where the ancient computer in your head stops functioning. This is not a difficult task, because silence is your natural heritage. You were born with it, just like every child is born with a beautiful, innocent smile. But you have forgotten it because your education, your religion, and your culture have buried it under a massive mountain of words, concepts, and ideologies. Meditation is simply a process of digging through this garbage to recover the golden spring of your own awareness. It is a deep deprogramming of your mind, a complete renunciation of the false faces that have been forced upon you by others. When the false disappears, the real is automatically present in all its pristine beauty. This inner revolution is the birth of the new man. The new man is not a better version of the old man. He is not a product of continuity, but a radical discontinuity. He is a rebirth. The old man lives out of fear, greed, and ambition, while the new man lives out of love, creativity, and spontaneous joy. He is a rebel who refuses to be molded into a useful commodity by the institutional powers of the society. He does not belong to any church, any nation, any race, or any flock. He stands alone on his own 2 feet, free and independent, a pure individual who is nameless, formless, and nationless. He is not competitive, because he knows that life is not a race to be won, but a song to be sung, a dance to be danced. He enjoys the simple things of life, food, drink, friendship, laughter without any sense of guilt or sin. He is a beautiful synthesis of Zorba the Greek and Gautama the Buddha, rooted deeply in the earth yet flying high into the sky of consciousness. You carry this new man inside you as a silent potentiality. The seed is there, waiting for the right conditions to explode and transform your entire existence. But to let this happen, you must be willing to step out of your comfortable prison. You must be willing to face the insecurity of freedom. You must stop listening to the priests who want to keep you small, guilty, and afraid. It is time to reclaim your original dignity, your pride of being human, your total integrity. You must become the master of your own destiny, accepting full responsibility for your life, your actions, and your consciousness. This is the ultimate awakening, the destination of your long journey through the darkness of conditioning. If you are looking for a clear, structured map to break these ancient chains and awaken the absolute authority of your inner being, a very powerful manual has been created for this exact purpose. You can access our specialized guide, the Hidden Energy Protocol, Reclaim Your God Mode, through the links available directly in the description below. This text is not another set of dogmas or philosophical theories to clutter your mind. It is a direct, experimental tool designed to help you dissolve the programming of the priest and the politician, a pragmatic framework to channel your vital energies upward, shifting you from a state of mechanical reaction into the sovereign fullness of your original nature. It is a gateway to stepping into your own internal power, a reminder that your divinity is not a distant reward, but an immediate reality waiting to be reclaimed. Explore the description, open the protocol, and allow your essential self to enter its true, unconditioned mode of existence. Look at the beauty of an individual who can stand alone in the world, completely relaxed, completely silent, yet radiant with life. He does not need a book to tell him how to love. He does not need a church to tell him how to pray, and he does not need a savior to guarantee his paradise. He is paradise itself. His every breath is a gratitude. His every movement is a dance, and his very presence is a blessing to the entire universe. This is the state of Buddhahood, the realization of your own infinite potential. It is not an Oriental achievement or a Western goal. It is simply the natural health of your soul when all conditionings have been dropped. Do not waste your precious moments running after illusions. Stop trembling before the fictional fires of hell, and stop buying the cheap transactions of the priests. Open your eyes, look inside, and realize that you are already home, dangerously. I am not asking you to simply look for physical hazards, to jump from high cliffs without a parachute, or to drive your sports car at a mad speed into a stone wall just to create a sensation. That is not living dangerously. That is merely an exhibition of unconsciousness, a stupid attempt by the ego to feel special before it commits suicide. When I speak of danger, I am speaking of a far deeper hazard, a psychological and spiritual risk that shakes the very foundations of the comfortable prison you have built around your life. Living dangerously means living in a state of absolute readiness for the unknown, a state where you are prepared to drop the past at any moment, without hesitation, without looking back, and without asking for a guarantee about what will happen next. It means living without a map, walking into the uncharted territory of your own consciousness and trusting your own immediate awareness rather than the dead rules of the collective crowd. Look at the way you have chosen to live your standard existence. You have sacrificed your life for the sake of safety. You have chosen a comfortable home, a predictable job, a socially respectable marriage, and a ready-made belief system. And you think you are alive. But your safety is just a decorative graveyard. Your stability is nothing but a state of stagnant paralysis, a slow freezing of your vital life energy. You are terrified of the unknown because the unknown cannot be calculated by your cunning intellect, because the unknown does not follow the instructions of your priests and your politicians. The mind is always trembling before the vastness of existence, always seeking a boundary, a definition, a limitation that it can control. But existence has no boundaries. Life is an overflowing, wild river that refuses to be contained within your narrow canals of morality and respectability. To be alive is to flow with this river, to let go of the shore, and to be completely comfortable with the absolute insecurity of the current. The performer in you is always looking for a result, always calculating the profit, always wondering if the investment of your time will bring a reward in the tomorrow. But the player is completely different. The quality of the player is the quality of an unconditioned child who enters into the game for the sheer joy of playing. He is not obsessed with the score. He is not worried about winning or losing, and he does not care about what the spectators will say when the game is over. The act of playing is his absolute fulfillment, a beautiful flame that burns completely in the here and now. I want you to drop your heavy status as an achieving performer and become a pure player in the theater of existence. Look at the trees, look at the stars, look at the oceans. They are not performing for anyone. They are not trying to achieve a target or win a gold medal in a universal competition. They are simply expressing their essential nature in a state of relaxed playfulness. A solitary flower blooming in a deep jungle where no human being will ever pass does not feel frustrated, does not feel like a failure, and does not stop exhaling its fragrance. Its bliss is in the blooming itself, an unconditional overflow of its internal treasure. When you step out of the performance and enter into the play, you open the door to true creativity. The creator is not necessarily a famous painter, a celebrated poet, or a world-renowned musician. These are commercial definitions created by a shallow society that only recognizes commodities. For me, a creator is any individual whose life expression comes from an unconditioned overflow of silent joy. You can be a creator while cleaning the floor, you can be a creator while cooking a simple meal, and you can be a creator while sitting silently under a tree looking at the grass grow. If your actions are an authentic expression of your immediate presence, if you pour your entire soul into the moment without any calculation of profit or recognition, your work becomes a sacred art. The priest wants you to be a copyist, a repetitive ritualist who imitates the gestures of dead saints, because an imitative mind is easy to control, easy to predict, and perfectly safe for the status quo. But the creator is a direct threat to the establishment because he creates something fresh and original every single moment. He does not rely on tradition. His authority comes from his own living experience. A small story will illuminate the deep division between the mechanical mind of imitation and the living consciousness of creativity. There was an old man who spent his entire life working in a large financial institution, counting columns of numbers, managing balances, and expanding the profits of his employers. He was highly respected, highly respectable, and perfectly conventional. He always told his family that he was sacrificing his present days so that when the time of his retirement arrived, he would have a massive bank balance and absolute security. He lived in a state of perpetual postponement, never looking at the sunrise, never walking on the beach, and never listening to the music of the birds, because his head was always full of calculations for the tomorrow. Finally, the day of his retirement arrived. He was given a golden watch, a grand farewell dinner, and a large pension. He went home to his beautiful country house, sat in his luxurious armchair in the garden, and thought, "Now the time has come to relax and enjoy the fruits of my lifelong labor." But when he looked at a beautiful rose blooming right in front of him, he could not see the rose. He could only see a calculation of its cost. When he listened to the wind moving through the pine trees, he did not hear a song. His mind immediately translated the sound into a mechanical noise that disturbed his rest. He realized, with a deep shock, that his capacity to live had been completely destroyed by decades of mechanical functioning. He had achieved absolute safety, but he had lost his soul in the process. He died a few weeks later, not from a physical illness, but from the utter emptiness of an unlived life. This is the condition of almost the entirety of humanity. You are all waiting for a tomorrow that never comes, sacrificing the vibrant reality of the immediate present for a fictional destination. You have been conditioned by your parents, your teachers, and your priests to look at life as a task to be completed, a series of duties to be performed, rather than a magnificent mystery to be celebrated. And out of this deep frustration, you look for a shortcut to truth, a ready-made formula that will give you the illusion of enlightenment without requiring you to undergo the agony of internal transformation. A man once walked up to a famous Zen master who lived on a remote mountain, and he said, "I am a very busy entrepreneur. I have a massive business to run and a large family to support. I do not have the time to sit in silence for hours and hours, watching my breath. Can you give me a shortcut to the truth? Can you summarize the entire wisdom of your lineage in a single sentence so that I can practice it while managing my store?" The Zen master looked at him with great compassion and wrote a single word on the dirt with his stick: attention. The businessman looked confused and said, "That is too brief. Anyone knows that word. Can you elaborate a little more?" The master smiled, erased the dirt, and wrote 3 words: attention, attention, attention. The businessman became angry and said, "You are acting like a fool. I am asking for deep spiritual wisdom, and you are just repeating a common word. What is the meaning of this?" The master looked into his eyes and said, "If you want to understand, sit silently and watch a wall for 10 years. The businessman gasped and said, "10 years is too long. Can I pay someone else to look at the wall for me? I have unlimited gold. I can hire 10 monks to look at the wall day and night on my behalf." The master laughed heartily and said, "Yes, you can do that, but then those monks will become enlightened and you will remain a rich fool. You cannot pass the responsibility of your awakening to another human being. No savior can open your eyes, no priest can carry your burden, and no holy scripture can do the work of meditation for you. You must step onto the path alone, with the courage of a warrior who faces his own internal darkness. This inner revolution demands the birth of a completely new human being, a synthesis that has never been realized on a wide scale in human history. I call this ultimate synthesis Zorba the Buddha. Up until now, humanity has lived in 2 fragmented extremes. On one side is the materialist, the sensualist, the worldly man represented by Zorba the Greek. He enjoys food, he enjoys wine, he loves women, he sings, and he dances passionately on the earth. He is intensely alive, but he is shallow. He has no vertical dimension, no sky, no experience of the silent depths of consciousness. He remains an animal, beautiful but blind, bound to the limitations of his biology. On the other side is the spiritualist, the monk, the ascetic represented by Gautama the Buddha. He knows the heights of silence, the absolute peace of the unconditioned being, and the freedom of the sky. But he has rejected the earth. He looks at the body as a sin, at the world as an illusion, and at human passions as a disease. He has become bloodless, a pale ghost who sits in a monastery, completely detached from the vibrant dance of existence. Both are partial, both are fragmented, and both are suffering from a hidden poverty. Zorba is rich in the exterior but utterly poor in the interior. Buddha is rich in the interior but completely starved in his relationship with the physical earth. My vision of the new man is that you must be both simultaneously, without any contradiction. You must have your feet rooted deeply in the rich mud of the earth, like Zorba, enjoying the senses, laughing with your whole heart, and celebrating the physical beauty of existence. And at the same time, your head must touch the highest stars, like Buddha, centered in absolute silence, watching the play of life with unclouded awareness. When Zorba and Buddha meet inside your consciousness, a magnificent dance comes into being. The earth and the sky embrace each other, and your life becomes a total celebration, rich in all its dimensions, horizontal and vertical. This integration is true maturity, but you must not confuse maturity with the simple biological process of aging. Most people in the world simply grow old. They never grow up. Aging is a mechanical phenomenon that happens to your physical body automatically. The clock goes on ticking, your cells become old, your hair turns gray, and your skin is covered with wrinkles. This does not require any intelligence, any effort, or any awareness on your part. Any idiot can grow old. In fact, all idiots do it perfectly well. But maturity is an entirely different matter. Maturity is the accumulation of awareness, a gradual awakening of your inner witness that looks at the body growing old but remains completely untouched by time. An old person who has only aged is a sad sight. He has lost his youthful vigor, but has gained no wisdom. He is full of complaints, full of regrets about the past, and terrified of the approaching death. But a mature person is an exquisite presence. His body may be weak, his hair may be white, but his eyes are full of a timeless light. His heart is filled with an unconditioned love, and his soul is completely at peace. He does not fear death because he has already touched that inside himself which can never die. The master is an individual who has reached this peak of maturity, a man who has returned home to his original face and stands as a living mirror for those who are still wandering in the dark. A master does not create followers, because the desire to create followers comes from a hidden ego that wants to dominate, that wants to feel superior. A true master has no ego. His work is to destroy your illusions, to break your crutches, and to shatter the safe belief systems that have kept you asleep. He is a beautiful danger to your personality. When you come close to a master, you are not coming close to a comforting shelter. You are coming close to a blazing fire that will burn away your conditioning, your masks, and your false identity. He does not give you a new doctrine to memorize. He simply takes away your old programs, leaving you beautifully empty, beautifully silent. It is a risky encounter, an experience that is only suitable for true players, not for calculated businessmen who are always looking for a safe transaction. Look at the way your society treats the question of life and death. You are taught to hide from death, to avoid talking about it, as if it were a taboo subject. You put the dying away in cold hospital rooms covered with machines so that you do not have to look at the reality of your own mortality. And because you are terrified of death, you are also incapable of living fully. Life and death are not two separate entities standing at opposite ends of your existence. They are the two sides of the same coin, moving together in a beautiful, continuous rhythm. Every breath you take is a small birth, and every breath you exhale is a small death. If you are afraid to die, you will also be afraid to exhale, and if you cannot exhale fully, you can never inhale deeply. The fear of death makes your life a narrow, restricted path where you are always holding back your energy, always playing it safe. But a man who loves his life deeply knows that death is its supreme culmination, the ultimate crescendo of the dance. If you live every moment with total intensity, with absolute awareness, when death arrives, you will meet it with a beautiful smile, ready to surrender your body to the earth and your consciousness to the absolute whole. The fencer in ancient Japan understood this secret deeply, which is why martial arts became an exquisite path to meditation under the guidance of Zen masters. A true samurai did not train his body simply to kill his enemies. His training was a discipline of absolute presence, a methodology to quiet the mind completely under the immediate threat of death. When two fencers stand face to face with their swords drawn, a single moment of thought means absolute destruction. If the fencer plans his move, if he remembers a strategy from his past training, or if he projections the victory into the next moment, his attention is divided, and the opponent's sword will immediately reach his heart. The mind needs time to operate, but when swords are moving, there is no time. The fencer must step out of his mind and act from his pure being, spontaneously, creatively, with total awareness. He does not react to the opponent's attack. He responds directly to the reality of the situation, without any internal hesitation. His vigilance becomes so intense that the division between him and the opponent vanishes. They become a single, fluid energy moving in perfect harmony. This is the state of no mind, a state where action is pure, where the ego is absent, and where the eternal truth reveals itself in a flash of immediate insight. You do not need to go to a battlefield or pick up a sword to experience this wholeness. Your daily life is an endless series of emergencies, a continuous challenge from existence that demands your total response. Every moment is an uncharted territory. Every encounter is a fresh mystery, and death is always walking right beside you, a silent companion that can touch your shoulder at any second. Why are you hiding inside your standard routines? Why are you repeating your old mechanical patterns year after year like a broken record player? Wake up from your long sleep. Look at the magnificence of the universe that surrounds you, the mountains, the stars, the oceans, are all waiting for you to join their eternal festival. Drop your heavy burdens of guilt, your artificial rules of morality, and your terrifying concepts of sin. You are a child of existence, born to live richly, deeply, and ecstatically. Accept your nature, trust your own heart, and have the courage to live dangerously every single moment of your life. When you are willing to risk everything for the sake of truth, the unknown will enfold you in its magic embrace, and you will realize that you are not a separate, lonely drop of water, but the vast, immortal ocean itself. I mean, a radical shift from the known to the unknown, a total willingness to look into the abyss of your own emptiness without turning back. The mind is always terrified of emptiness. It wants to fill itself with thoughts, with desires, with worries, with relationships, with doctrines. Anything will do, as long as it avoids the naked encounter with nothingness. But this nothingness is not an empty vacuum. It is the very womb of creation. It is what the ancient mystics called the state of absolute clarity, the space where the small, petty self dissolves and the vast cosmic consciousness takes over. The priest knows that if you ever discover the beauty of this inner emptiness, his temple will become completely useless to you. He thrives on your crowded mind, on your inner chaos, on your endless anxieties. He promises to clean your house, but his real interest is to keep you dirty so that you must return to his confessional week after week, year after year. You are constantly looking for a refuge, a hidden corner where the unpredictable storms of existence cannot reach you. You seek comfort in your belief systems, your social identity, and your daily rituals, thinking that if you repeat them long enough, you will build an unshakable fortress. But existence does not tolerate fortresses. The universe functions through a perpetual state of flux, an endless movement where nothing remains static for a single moment. When you try to make your life secure, you are acting against the very flow of the cosmic energy. You become a stagnant pool, accumulating dirt, losing your freshness, and turning into a living corpse. True living means being ready to step into the dark night without a lantern, relying solely on the silent fire that burns within your own awareness. Consider the deep anxiety that grips your heart whenever you are faced with a situation that your intellect cannot predict. Your immediate response is to run to your memory, to search for a ready-made formula that worked in the past, or to consult the rules written down by long-dead authorities. You are terrified of acting spontaneously because spontaneity requires you to be fully present, completely bare, without the armor of your conditioning. The priest has told you that your spontaneity is dangerous, that your natural instincts will lead you straight to damnation, and that you must always guide your steps by the light of his moral commandments. He has made you afraid of your own freedom, turning you into a helpless dependent who dares not move a single step without his permission. But your freedom is your true nature. You cannot compromise it without losing your dignity, your joy, and your essential humanity. The moral rules imposed upon you are not designed to make you healthy or whole. They are designed to make you manageable. An independent, ecstatic human being is a great trouble for the state and the church. He cannot be forced to march into a war to murder his fellow men. He cannot be frightened by the imaginary fires of hell, and he cannot be manipulated by the promise of a future paradise. He is happy here and now, and his happiness makes him a complete rebel. The establishment needs people who are broken inside, people who feel a permanent sense of guilt and unworthiness, because only a guilt-ridden soul can be easily ruled and exploited. Let me share a short parable about the mechanical nature of the mind that lives under the tyranny of tradition. There was a traveler who arrived at a strange village in the middle of a grand festival. He noticed that all the villagers were gathered around a massive stone in the center of the market, offering beautiful flowers, expensive incense, and singing devotional songs to it. The traveler was curious, so he walked up to one of the elders and asked, "What is the meaning of this stone? Why are you worshipping it with so much intensity?" The elder looked at him with great reverence and said, "This stone was placed here by our ancestors centuries ago. It is a sacred object that protects our village from evil spirits and guarantees our prosperity." The traveler smiled and asked, "But do you know where the stone came from? What did your ancestors say about it?" The elder shook his head and said, "We do not know the exact details, but our holy book says that anyone who questions the holiness of this stone will be struck down by lightning." The traveler was not satisfied, so he went to the oldest library in the town and spent days searching through ancient records. Finally, he found a small, dusty diary written by the very man who had founded the village. He opened the pages and discovered the truth. Centuries ago, when the first settlers arrived, the founder had brought a small cart filled with vegetables. To prevent the cart from rolling down the hill during a heavy storm, he had picked up a large heavy stone from the river bed and placed it behind the wheel. When the storm ended, the cart was moved, but the stone was left behind in the mud. Over the generations, the original purpose was forgotten. The stone was surrounded by stories. A priest built a temple around it, and it became the foundational deity of the entire community. This is exactly how your traditions, your dogmas, and your moral codes have been created. They are nothing but old rocks used by dead generations to block the wheels of their local problems, but the priests have surrounded them with holiness, with fear, and with heavy penalties, turning them into sacred laws that you must follow without question. You are sacrificing your intelligence, your fresh creativity, and your immediate life to worship the old stones left behind in the mud of history. You carry the dead weight of your ancestors on your back, and then you wonder why your life feels so heavy, why your heart cannot sing, and why your soul is running out of breath. To break away from this antiquity requires an immense internal strength, a willingness to be completely alone in your rebellion. The crowd will never support a man who throws away the sacred stones, because your freedom exposes their own self-inflicted slavery. They will call you immoral. They will label you as an outcast. And they will warn you that you are walking straight toward the dark gates of hell. But hell is not a geographical location hidden beneath the earth. Hell is simply the state of a mind that is divided against itself, a consciousness that lives in permanent self-hatred, suppression, and pretense. If you are pretending to be virtuous to please the crowd, you are already living in the deepest fire of torment. Your ego is the ultimate barrier to your inner integration. The ego is a false identity created by your social conditioning, a collection of labels, titles, and opinions given to you by others. It lives exclusively on a diet of comparison, always trying to prove that it is superior to someone else, always seeking a gold medal, a promotion, or a high seat in the hierarchy of respectability. The ego cannot exist in the immediate present because the present is vast, silent, and real, while the ego is just a conceptual phantom. It can only survive by running toward the future or clinging to the past. It is always planning, always calculating, always asking, "What will I gain from this moment?" The priest needs your ego to remain intact because the ego is the hook through which he controls your life. He flatters your ego by telling you that you are one of the chosen ones, that your faith is superior to the faith of others, and that your sacrifices will be rewarded with an exalted position in his paradise. He creates a spiritual marketplace where your virtues are counted like coins and your prayers are treated as investments. But a mind that is calculating profits can never know the fragrance of love, can never enter into the silent space of meditation. Meditation is the ultimate uselessness from the commercial point of view. It does not produce a commodity, it does not add to your bank account, and it does not make you a celebrity in the marketplace. It is a pure, non-purposeful celebration of your being, an absolute relaxation into the immediate now. When you sit in silence, doing nothing, without any desire to achieve a state of perfection, a profound shift takes place inside your energy field. The mechanical noise of the mind begins to settle down, just like the mud settles to the bottom of a lake when the water is left undisturbed. You begin to perceive a deep, baseline silence that has always been present within you, a silence that cannot be disturbed by the external storms of life. You realize that you are not the thoughts that move across your brain, you are not the emotions that shake your heart, and you are not the labels given to you by the society. You are the pure, unclouded witness that observes it all. This discovery is the beginning of true wealth. A man who has found his inner witness is no longer a beggar searching for attention, validation, or respectability from the crowd. He is an emperor, absolutely satisfied with his own immediate reality. He does not care if the world forgets his name. He does not care if he is condemned or praised, because his joy comes from an inexhaustible spring that belongs entirely to his own being. He becomes a master of his own consciousness, moving through the world with a light step, completely free from the chains of tradition and fear. But to maintain this state of awareness in a world that is running headlong toward mechanical madness requires you to be a permanent warrior. You must be vigilant every single moment, watching your reactions, observing your old habits, and refusing to let the machine take over your life. When you are alert, your reactions turn into conscious responses. A reaction is a mechanical loop triggered by your past conditioning, while a response is a fresh, spontaneous action born out of your immediate awareness of the present situation. Action frees you from the past, while reaction keeps you bound to the same old chains, making them thicker and harder with each repetition. Consider the absolute beauty of an individual who acts from a space of total awareness. He does not carry a ready-made script in his head. He meets each moment as a fresh, unmapped territory. If he faces an enemy, his response is spontaneous. If he meets a friend, his love is authentic. If he is alone, his silence is total. He does not postpone his life for a tomorrow, because he knows that the tomorrow is an absolute fiction created by a frightened mind. For him, the ultimate is always hidden right here, in the immediate now. He lives his life fully, squeezing every drop of juice from each passing moment, transforming his daily existence into a continuous festival of consciousness. Organized religion has always been terrified of such an individual because he cannot be forced into a mold. He does not fit into their categories. He does not follow their herd, and he does not worship their dead stones. He is a living flame that threatens to burn away their entire empire of lies, fraud, and psychological exploitation. The priest wants you to remain a sheep, a blind follower who obeys his commands out of fear of hell and desire for paradise. But I tell you, you are a seed of Buddhahood, born to blossom into a beautiful, independent lotus flower. You only need to drop your reliance on the false shepherds, throw away your masks, and have the courage to walk into the vast, open sky of your own freedom. Look at the way your society has organized itself around the concept of utility. Everything must have a purpose. Everything must be useful for something else. Everything must be turned into a business. A child is not allowed to simply play among the flowers. He must be educated to become an efficient technician, a successful executive, or a disciplined soldier. His spontaneous joy, his playful creativity, and his innocent laughter are systematically crushed to make him a functional cog in the massive mechanical structure of the economy. He is taught to sacrifice his present happiness for the sake of a future success, entering into a competitive race that turns his life into a permanent nightmare of anxiety and stress. But life is not a business. It is a cosmic play, an endless game that has no purpose outside of itself. Why does the ocean wave crash against the shore? What is its utility? Why do the stars shine in the night sky? What is their target? Why do the wildflowers exhale their fragrance in the deep forest where no human being will ever smell them? Existence functions through an unconditional overflow of energy, a pure celebration of being that requires no justification, no profit, and no purpose. When you align yourself with this cosmic play, you drop your performance orientation and you become a pure player. You live your life for the sheer joy of living, transforming your daily work into a creative art and your relationships into a beautiful sharing of love. This shift from performance to play is the ultimate liberation from the trap of the priest. The priest has told you that your life is a serious trial, a heavy test where every action is being counted by a judgmental deity hidden in the clouds. He has made you look at existence with a grim, serious face, turning your spiritual life into a monotonous routine of rituals and prayers. But seriousness is a spiritual disease, a sign that your ego is still dominating your consciousness. A true religious man is full of laughter, full of fun, full of dancing. His prayer is not a dynamic demand for a future reward. It is an ecstatic song of gratitude for the immediate blessing of being alive. Think about the absolute freedom that comes when you stop trying to become someone else, when you completely abandon the desire to meet the expectations of others. You sit quietly in your own center, and you look at the world with a peaceful smile. You realize that you don't need a gold medal to be valuable. You don't need a high position to be respectable. And you don't need the validation of the crowd to be whole. You are enough, exactly as you are, an authentic expression of the cosmic energy. In this state of total acceptance, all your internal conflicts dissolve, your energy is unified, and your consciousness becomes a calm, transparent mirror that reflects the absolute truth of existence. This is the state of true aloneness, which is completely different from the painful state of loneliness. Loneliness is the feeling that something is missing, a dependency on the presence of others to fill your inner vacuum. It is the condition of a beggar who needs a distraction to escape from his own emptiness. But aloneness is the realization that your inner space is whole, complete, and overflowing with its own light. It is the condition of an emperor who requires nothing from the outside to be happy. In aloneness, you are not isolated from the world. On the contrary, for the first time, you are truly connected with the core of existence, because your small, separate identity has dissolved into the vast cosmic whole. When a man achieves this state of integrated aloneness, his love changes its quality entirely. It is no longer a dependent relationship based on need, on fear, or on mutual exploitation. It becomes a spontaneous sharing of abundance, a pure gift that expects nothing in return. He loves because his heart is so full of joy that it must overflow, just like a cloud must rain when it is heavy with water. His love does not create a prison for the other. It gives them absolute freedom to blossom in their own unique way. He does not create a marriage, which is a political contract based on safety and fear. He creates a continuous relating, a beautiful friendship that flows naturally with the changing rhythms of life. The priest has always tried to corrupt this natural flow of love by enclosing it within the heavy walls of marriage, laws, and moral restrictions. He has turned a sacred meeting of two souls into a social duty, a legal obligation that must be maintained even when the joy has completely vanished, even when the relationship has turned into a permanent nightmare of fights and misery. He tells you that you must sacrifice your happiness to maintain the holiness of the institution, without realizing that nothing can be holier than the living joy of a human heart. An institution is a dead structure, a ghost from the past, while your love is a living reality that belongs exclusively to the present moment. To live your life according to your own immediate truth requires you to drop your fear of the crowd, your fear of the future, and your fear of death. Death is always walking right beside you, a silent companion that reminds you of the transience of all external structures. The materialist is terrified of death because he only knows his physical body, and he thinks that when the body dies, everything is finished. He runs frantically from one experience to another, trying to squeeze out as much pleasure as possible before his time runs out, turning his life into a tense, anxious chase. But a man who meditates deeply looks into his own center and discovers that which is timeless, that which was never born and can never die. He realizes that the body is just a temporary container, a fragile shell, while his essential consciousness is eternal. When you lose your fear of death, you lose your capacity to be exploited by the priest. The priest's entire power depends on your terror of what will happen to you after your body enters the grave. He sells you insurance policies for the next world, demanding your freedom and your submission in this world as the price. But when you know that life is an ongoing, eternal journey, when you can see the divine light shining through your own awareness, his trade secret is exposed. You walk out of his marketplace, you throw away his maps, and you step into the vast sky of your own freedom, ready to live fully and die happily as an authentic individual. This internal revolution is the only path to a healthy, mature humanity. All the outer revolutions have failed because they only changed the structure of the economy or the names of the politicians, while leaving the internal consciousness of the human being untouched. If the human being remains a mechanical robot, full of greed, ambition, and fear, any system he creates will eventually turn into a new prison, a new methodology of exploitation. The only true revolution is the spiritual revolution, the transformation of the individual from a state of sleep to a state of absolute awakening. It is a lonely path, a dangerous journey that requires you to risk everything, but it is the only adventure that is truly worth living. Wake up from your centuries of slumber. Look at the beauty of the stars. Listen to the whisper of the wind and feel the powerful beat of your own heart. You are not a separate, helpless entity cast out of a divine garden. You are an essential part of this living universe, a unique blossom of the cosmic energy. Trust your own intelligence, love your own body, and let your heart be guided solely by its own spontaneous joy. Drop your heavy stones of tradition. Say goodbye to the priest in your unconscious and step fearlessly into the immense mystery of the here and now. Your paradise is not a future destination to be earned through transactions. Your paradise is right here, waiting for you to open your eyes and claim your true nature. Living dangerously is not an external act of bravado. It is an internal mutation that happens the moment you decide to step off the well-beaten track of the crowd. The crowd lives in a state of absolute hypnosis, moving along the tracks laid down by thousands of years of dead ancestors, dead politicians, and dead priests. They have created a beautiful, comfortable map for you, and they tell you that if you follow this map, you will never get lost, you will always be safe, and you will arrive at a magnificent destination after you die. But I tell you, the map is a total forgery. It is a device to keep you from exploring your own immediate reality. The moment you follow a ready-made map, you are no longer a living human being. You become an evolutionary copy, a machine that is simply repeating the movements of others. To live dangerously is to throw away all maps, to step into the uncharted jungle of your own consciousness, and to rely solely on your own internal light. The mind is always trembling before the vastness of the unknown, because the unknown cannot be controlled, calculated, or manipulated by your cunning intellect. The intellect is an arch businessman. It always wants a guarantee before it takes a step. It always asks for a profit margin, and it always wants to know if the investment of its energy will bring a safe reward in the tomorrow. But life is not a business transaction. Life is a wild, unpredictable river that flows without a purpose outside of itself. The river is not running to achieve a goal. It is running for the sheer joy of running, dancing over the rocks, whispering to the trees, and merging into the ocean. When you live your life as a business, you become a performing machine, constantly looking at the score, constantly worried about success or failure, and constantly missing the exquisite treasure of the present moment. You must drop this performing attitude and become a pure player in the cosmic theater of existence, Look at the difference between an achieving mind and a playful soul. The achieving mind is always tense, always in a hurry, and always heavy with anxiety. Even when it takes up meditation, it turns meditation into another ambition, another target to be achieved, another gold medal to be added to its collection of worldly titles. The individual sits in silence, but his mind is still running in the marketplace, calculating how many hours he has meditated, how much progress he has made, and when he will receive his certificate of enlightenment. This is a complete misunderstanding of the meditative space. Meditation cannot be achieved through effort, because effort implies tension, and tension is the very boundary of your ego. Meditation happens only when all efforts are dropped, when all ambitions are forgotten, and when you simply relax into the immediate here and now, content with the simple fact of breathing. The priest does not want you to discover this playful relaxation, because a playful soul can never be managed or controlled. The establishment requires serious people, sad people, heavy souls who are easily crushed by the weight of duty and morality. Seriousness is a psychological illness, a sign that your ego is still dominating your consciousness. A true religious individual is full of laughter, full of fun, and full of a wild, innocent celebration. His life is not a trial to be endured, but a magnificent festival to be enjoyed. When you laugh from your very belly, your internal darkness disappears instantly like a flash of lightning. In that moment of deep laughter, your past is gone, your future is non-existent, and you are fully present to the reality of your being. This is the only true morality, the only true religion, to be intensely alive, beautifully free, and completely ecstatic. But you have been conditioned to look at life through the narrow eyes of suppression. You have been taught that your natural instincts are sinful, that your body is an enemy, and that your sexuality is a dangerous animal that must be kept in a cage. This condemnation creates a permanent warfare inside your consciousness, a split that drains your vital life energy and leaves you weak, hollow, and dependent. You spend your whole life fighting your own nature, trying to prune your leaves according to the rules of the priests, without ever realizing that you are destroying the very roots of your life. You cannot transform your energy by fighting it. You can only transform it by accepting it with absolute love and total gratitude. Every energy inside you is a divine gift, a raw material that can be elevated to the highest peak of consciousness. Your anger can blossom into compassion. Your lust can turn into a sacred love, and your greed can expand into a deep sharing. But this alchemy is possible Only if you accept yourself exactly as you are, without any interpretation of right or wrong. The priest thrives on your internal conflict. He creates a sophisticated marketplace of guilt where he sells you ready-made solutions for the very problems he created in the first place. He tells you that you are a sinner, born in original sin, and that you are utterly worthless on your own. And when you are completely crushed by this sense of unworthiness, when you are trembling with the fear of hell, he steps forward as your savior, offering you a bridge to a fictional paradise. This is the ultimate trade secret of organized religion, to make you sick so that you must buy their medicine. It is a massive psychological exploitation that has been going on for centuries, turning humanity into a gathering of rootless, helpless beggars who dare not trust their own hearts. You must dismantle this perverted structure in your own consciousness if you want to find your true face. You must say a categorical goodbye to the priest within your unconscious. This requires an immense inner courage, a willingness to stand completely alone against the weight of tradition and collective opinion. The crowd will never forgive an individual who decides to be free, because your freedom exposes the self-inflicted slavery of their own lives. They will criticize you, they will condemn you, and they will call you eccentric or mad. But let them say whatever they want. Their opinions are nothing but signatures written on water, arbitrary and meaningless. Your reality belongs entirely to you, and being true to your own nature is the greatest blessing in existence. Look at the way your society has organized itself around the concept of private property and family structures. The family is an artificial prison designed to maintain control over the new generations, to program each child with the specific prejudices, superstitions, and nationalistic dogmas of the past. A child is born like a blank sheet of paper, beautifully empty, completely clean. He arrives with an immense capacity to wonder, to play, and to experience the sheer ecstasy of being alive. But the moment he enters into the family structure, the wolves jump upon him. Parents, teachers, and priests begin to write their rules, their morality, and their doctrines on his soul, clipping his wings and then expecting him to fly toward the stars. They turn the unique individual into a useful robot, an efficient machine that fits perfectly into the competitive structures of the marketplace. This programming is so deep that it penetrates into your very bone and marrow. You are taught to be a Christian, a Muslim, a Hindu, or a communist before you even know what it means to be a human being. These are not names of honor. These are the names of your cages. You belong to a herd because you are afraid to face the immense, wild freedom of existence on your own feet. You prefer the safety of the crowd, the comfort of a ready-made program that tells you how to behave, so that you do not have to use your own unique intelligence. But a life lived according to a program is a dead life, a mechanical repetition that brings no satisfaction, no fulfillment, and no growth. You must have the courage to renounce your conditioning, to erase everything that has been written on your soul by others, and to recover the pristine innocence of your childhood. True growth is not an accumulation of knowledge. It is a total house cleaning of the mind. It is a process of de-learning, a dismantling of the false identity that has been superimposed upon your reality. When you drop your beliefs, when you throw away your dogmas, and when you stand face to face with existence without any conceptual screens, you enter into the state of no mind. This state of no mind is the ultimate destination of all true meditation. It is a space of pure silence, an absence of thought, and an absolute presence to the here and now. In this space, you do not find an answer to the questions of life. Rather, all questions simply dissolve because you have touched the very core of reality, where everything is already complete, whole, and perfect. This inner integration is the birth of the new man, a synthesis that goes beyond the old fragmentations of history. Up until now, humanity has lived in two separate, unhealthy extremes. On one side is the materialist, the worldly man who enjoys the physical world but remains completely blind to the vertical dimension of consciousness. He is rich in the exterior but utterly poor in the interior. On the other side is the spiritualist, the monk who rejects the earth, labels the body as a sin, and runs away to a monastery to seek an abstract transcendence. He is rich in the interior, but completely starved in his relationship with the physical earth. Both are partial, both are fragmented, and both are suffering from a deep hidden poverty. My vision of the new man is that you must be both, simultaneously, without any internal conflict. You must be Zorba the Greek and Gautama the Buddha combined into a single, integrated whole. The new man is rooted deeply in the earth, enjoying the senses, laughing with his whole heart, and celebrating the physical beauty of existence, while his head touches the highest stars, centered in absolute silence, watching the play of life with unclouded awareness. When Zorba and Buddha meet inside your consciousness, your life becomes a total celebration, a beautiful dance where the horizontal and the vertical dimensions complement each other perfectly. The earth cannot laugh without the sky, and the sky remains empty without the earth. When they dance together, a grand harmony is born, an orchestra of consciousness that transforms your daily existence into a paradise. But to let this integration happen, you must stop looking at your life through the lens of a future destination. The performing mind is always running toward a goal, always trying to reach somewhere else, always treating the present moment as a mere stepping stone for a better tomorrow. This is an absolute madness. The tomorrow is a complete fiction created by a frightened intellect. It never comes. Whenever it comes, it is always the today. By focusing your attention on the future, you are continuously missing the only reality that exists, the immediate present. Life is happening right now, all around you and inside you, but you are not home to receive it. You are always busy in your dreams, always counting your future profits, or always crying over your past mistakes. You must learn the art of being available to the here and now, dropping all plans, all goals, and all ambitions. A man who knows how to be present to the immediate moment enters into a deep state of relaxation. He realizes that there is nothing to be achieved, nowhere to go, and nothing to become. He is already that which existence wanted him to be. This relaxation is the very definition of grace. When you are relaxed, your energy is no longer dissipated in a frantic chase after illusions. It accumulates within your own center, turning into a silent reservoir of light. And when this light overflows, your life becomes a natural expression of love, creativity, and spontaneous joy. You don't make an effort to be good. You don't follow a code of rules to be virtuous. Your goodness becomes a natural fragrance of your integrated being, just like a rose exhales its sweetness into the wind. Look at the way your society treats relationships. Everything has been corrupted by the desire to possess, to dominate, and to control the other. Marriage is a political contract based on fear, an institutional trap designed to turn a living, flowing love into a cold, legal obligation. The priest tells you that marriage is sacred and that you must maintain the structure even when the joy has completely vanished, even when being together has turned into a permanent nightmare of friction and suffering. This is a complete crime against human consciousness. Nothing can be more sacred than the living joy of a human heart. When you try to force love into a legal container, you murder its spontaneity. Love can only exist in absolute freedom. It cannot be commanded. It cannot be promised for the tomorrow, and it cannot be turned into a duty. A mature individual does not create a marriage. He creates a continuous relating, a beautiful friendship that expects nothing in return. He loves because his heart is overflowing with an abundance of joy, and sharing that joy is a natural necessity of his being. He does not treat the other as a possession, as a commodity, or as a tool to fill his own internal vacuum. He gives the other absolute freedom to be themselves, to bloom in their own unique way, without demanding that they conform to his expectations. If the paths of two lovers diverge at an intersection of life, they can say goodbye to each other with deep gratitude for all the beautiful moments they shared, without any pain, without any guilt, and without any resentment. This is the only way to live a life of dignity and true intimacy. But the male ego, artificially cultivated out of a deep inferiority complex, finds it nearly impossible to accept this freedom. For centuries, man has used his muscular force to oppress the woman, to confine her to a lower category, and to deny her economic and educational independence, simply because he was terrified of her natural superiority. The woman is closer to nature, closer to the source of life, more patient, more resilient, and naturally more balanced than man. To hide his own trembling, man created a sophisticated structure of chauvinism, glorifying the brutal qualities of aggression and power while condemning the feminine virtues of love, trust, beauty, and intuition as signs of weakness. But this imbalance is destroying the planet. We have had too much sun, too much heat, and too much war. We must bring the moon back into our collective consciousness, nourishing our souls with poetry, aesthetics, and a silent passivity that knows how to surrender to reality. Passivity is the very key to meditation. Meditation cannot be conquered through an aggressive approach. It cannot be taken by storm. You cannot force yourself to be silent, because the very force you use creates a subtle tension that keeps your mind agitated. You must learn the art of waiting, the art of a relaxed, non-seeking alertness. You sit quietly, doing nothing, and you wait for spring to arrive, and when the spring comes, the grass will grow by itself. You do not need to pull the grass to make it grow. Your effort will only destroy the fragile roots. This patience is the highest form of intelligence. It is the understanding that existence functions according to its own organic rhythm, and that your only task is to remain available, empty, and silent, so that the cosmic energy can flow through you without any resistance. When you touch this inner center of silence, you experience the state of integrated aloneness. Most people are terrified of being alone because they confuse aloneness with loneliness. Loneliness is a state of poverty, a feeling that the other is missing, an anxious search for a distraction to escape from your own empty house. The lonely person runs to the theater, to the club, to the marketplace, or into relationships simply to avoid looking into his own depths. But aloneness is a state of absolute wealth, a realization that your own inner house is complete, whole, and fully illuminated by its own light. It is the condition of a master who requires nothing from the outside world to be content. In aloneness, you are not disconnected from existence. On the contrary, because your small, separate ego has dissolved, you become one with the entire universe. Your heartbeat becomes the heartbeat of the cosmos, and your life turns into a continuous prayer. The priest does not want you to discover this inner wealth, because an emperor can never be turned into a beggar. His entire enterprise depends on keeping you in a state of chronic dependency, making you feel that you are weak, incomplete, and always in need of his guidance, his books, and his rituals. He wants you to focus your attention exclusively on the external world, on competing with your neighbors, on accumulating wealth, and on maintaining a respectable reputation, so that you never find the time to look inside. He turns your attention into a commodity, trading your freedom for an illusion of safety. But the day you decide to turn your eyes inward, his magic loses its grip. You realize that the kingdom of God is not hidden behind the clouds. It is vibrant within your own immediate presence. To navigate this deep internal transformation, to step off the mechanical tracks of the mind and awaken the absolute authority of your essential being, an incredibly precise manual has been prepared for those who are ready to take the risk of freedom. You can easily access our breakthrough digital text, the Hidden Energy Protocol, Reclaim Your God Mode, directly from the links provided in the description below. This work is not a compilation of new dogmas to memorize or abstract philosophies to ponder. It is a practical, direct tool designed to help you dissolve the subtle conditionings of the priest and the politician. It provides an immediate framework to gather your scattered life energies and channel them upward, transforming your daily mechanical reactions into the sovereign fullness of spontaneous presence. It serves as a clear lantern for your internal mutation, reminding you that your divine nature is not a distant reward to be bargained for, but an immediate power waiting to be unlocked. Review the details in the description, explore the protocol, and let your original face emerge in its true, unconditioned state of absolute sovereignty. A human being who has found his own center becomes a light unto himself. He does not need a book to tell him what is true. He does not need a nation to give him an identity, and he does not need a church to secure his paradise. He is paradise itself. His very breath is an expression of gratitude. His every action is a creative art, and his relationship with the universe becomes a continuous celebration. He is no longer a slave to his past habits or a prisoner of his future dreams. He is a free spirit that moves with absolute grace through the immediate now. This is the realization of your infinite potential. the flowering of your golden lotus. Drop all your fears. Stop trembling before the fictional terrors of hell and step boldly into the vast, open sky of your own freedom. Open your eyes, look inside, and realize that the destination you have been searching for across centuries is already vibrant within your own heart. Dangerously, I mean entering into a dimension where your old identity cannot survive. A space where the safe shore of your past conditioning completely disappears from view. Physical risks are superficial because they only involve the outer shell, the body, which is destined to return to the dust sooner or later anyway. But a spiritual risk means putting your very ego on the line, being ready to face the absolute emptiness within you, and recognizing that everything you have believed about yourself is nothing but a grand fiction created by a frightened mind. The priest has told you that you must always remain within the boundaries of the known, that you must follow the established tracks of tradition, and that you must never question the rules written down in ancient books. He has made you terrified of the dark night of your own soul because he knows that if you ever dare to step into that uncharted territory alone, you will discover that you do not need him, that his temples are empty, and that his doctrines are completely dead. The mind is a control maniac, always seeking to manipulate and predict every single aspect of your existence. It wants a clear path, a guaranteed outcome, and a safe insurance policy before it takes a single step into the unknown. It behaves exactly like an old conservative businessman who refuses to risk his capital unless he is absolutely certain of a high profit margin. But life does not function according to the laws of the marketplace. Life is a wild, spontaneous torrent that refuses to be contained within your narrow definitions of safety and respectability. When you treat your consciousness as a commercial enterprise, you reduce your entire existence to a series of mechanical calculations, constantly looking at the score, constantly worried about success or failure, and completely missing the radiant ecstasy of the present moment. To live dangerously means to drop this calculating attitude completely, to become a wild player who puts everything into the game for the sheer joy of playing, and to understand that the greatest victory is found when you are willing to lose everything for the sake of truth. A beautiful story from the Zen tradition perfectly encapsulates this radical shift from a calculated life to total, wild spontaneity. There was a great samurai warrior who returned home early from the battle line only to find a simple servant making love to his wife. Being a man trained in the path of Zen and absolute clarity, the samurai did not fly into a vulgar rage. He looked at the servant with absolute coolness and said, "Do not worry, just finish your work. I am waiting for you outside in the courtyard. You have crossed a boundary, and now you must bring a sword into your hand and fight me. It is perfectly all right, whatever is happening, but justice must be decided on the edge of the blade." The poor servant began to tremble with an uncontrollable fear. He did not know how to hold a sword. He had never fought a day in his life, and his master was a world-renowned warrior who could cut off his head in a fraction of a second. Realizing that his death was certain, the servant ran through the back door and rushed toward the great Zen master who lived on the mountain, who happened to be the teacher of the samurai as well. The servant threw himself at the master's feet, weeping bitterly, and told him the entire story, begging for a miracle. The Zen master listened to him with deep silence and then said, "There is no need to worry. I will teach you how to hold the sword right now. And let me tell you a secret. It does not matter at all that your master is a legendary warrior. The only thing that matters in the ultimate crisis of life is absolute fullness, total spontaneity. Your master is a highly trained technician. He will behave according to his years of practice. He will calculate his moves, and he will be confident that he is playing with a helpless mouse. Because he is confident, he cannot be truly present. But you have no choice except to be completely unconditional. You have nothing to lose because your death is already guaranteed, so why not go completely wild? When you face him, do not think about defense, do not think about rules, and do not try to act like a trained soldier. Just hold the sword with both hands, look into his eyes, roar like a mad lion, and hit him hard anywhere you can. Just go completely crazy." The servant could not believe his ears, but since he had no other option, he decided to follow the master's advice. He learned the basic grip of the blade, ran back to the palace, and stepped into the courtyard where the samurai was waiting patiently. The servant stood before his master, but he was no longer the trembling slave who had run away a few hours ago. He drew his sword, and suddenly he roared with a sound so primal, so fierce, that the leaves on the trees began to shake. The samurai looked at the sword and recognized it instantly. It was the sacred blade of his own Zen master. He felt a sudden chill in his heart, wondering what kind of transformation had taken place within this simple servant. Before the samurai could even form a thought, the servant rushed forward like a wild tempest, wielding the sword with a chaotic, unpredictable frenzy, hitting here and there without any pattern, without any logic. The legendary samurai was completely at a loss. He could fight any trained warrior in the world because he knew their techniques, he could predict their strategies, and he could calculate their movements. But this madman before him did not follow a single rule of fencing. He was moving with an absolute, unconditional intensity that left no time for thought. The servant pushed the samurai against the wall, striking with such raw, wild power that the master's defenses began to shatter. Finally, with the blade resting right against his chest, the great samurai dropped his sword and cried out, "Please forgive me. Stop this madness. You will kill me. You do not know how to fight. What on earth are you doing?" The servant smiled and said, "It is not a matter of doing. It is my last chance for survival, and I am simply doing it with my whole being." The samurai bowed down before his own servant, recognizing that in that moment of absolute fullness, the amateur had transcended the expert. This story reveals the ultimate secret of the warrior quality that I want you to discover within your own consciousness. The fullness of your being is your only true victory, and that fullness is possible only when you are pushed to the absolute wall. When you realize that your old mechanical mind has no answer for the immediate emergency of life. Your priests and your politicians have trained you to be like the samurai before his defeat, full of techniques, full of dogmas, full of pre-programmed behaviors that keep you safe within the boundaries of the herd. But when life faces you with a real crisis, when death stands right before your eyes, all your accumulated knowledge turns out to be nothing but dead weight. You must learn the art of the servant, the art of dropping all calculations, going completely wild with your awareness, and responding to reality with an unconditional wholeness that leaves no room for hesitation. You are always seeking a safe path, a compromised position where you can live without taking any real risks. You love your partner, but you hate the intensity of a deep relationship because intimacy demands that you expose your vulnerability, that you drop your masks, and that you allow the other to look directly into your hidden wounds. You say you want to find God. You say you want to experience the ultimate truth, but you are only looking for a spiritual decoration to make your ego look more respectable. You are a businessman even in your prayers, always asking for a reward, always bargaining with the divine, and always trying to secure a comfortable seat in a future paradise. But I tell you, the divine is not a commodity that can be purchased in the marketplace of your virtues. The divine is a fire that will consume your false identity completely, and you can touch it only if you are ready to risk everything, to lose your respectability, and to stand naked in the immense emptiness of the present moment. Consider the sheer wit and humor hidden within the structure of your biological energy. You look at your passions, you look at your anger, and you look at your sexual desires as if they are separate enemies that you must conquer through willpower. This is the ultimate stupidity taught by the priests for centuries. They have turned your attention away from the source of your energy, making you believe that if you fight your body, you will achieve spirituality. A small anecdote will help you understand the hilarious reality of a mind that is caught in its own mechanical programming. A middle-aged couple took their young son to a grand circus, and during the magnificent performance of a giant gorilla, the husband had to leave his seat to go to the restroom. While he was away, the gorilla performed an incredible stunt, and the boy nudged his mother, asking with great curiosity, "Mother, what is that long, large thing hanging between the gorilla's legs?" The mother felt immensely embarrassed by the question, blushed deeply, and quickly replied, "Oh, that is nothing, my darling. Just ignore it." A few minutes later, the husband returned to his seat, and the wife left to buy some popcorn for the child. While she was away, the gorilla repeated the stunt, and the boy nudged his father, asking the exact same question, "Father, what is that big thing hanging between the gorilla's legs?" The father smiled with great pride and replied immediately, "That, my son, is his magnificent masculine nature." The boy looked completely confused for a moment, thought about the mother's response, and then commented, "That is very strange. Father, then why did mother just tell me that it was absolutely nothing?" The father squared his shoulders, smiled grimly, and said with absolute confidence, "Well, my son, the answer is simple. I have simply spoiled your mother badly over the years." This humorous interplay reveals the deep, unconscious patterns that dominate your life. The woman looks at reality through her own set of repressions and social bashfulness, while the man filters everything through his competitive, proud ego. Neither is looking at the raw fact as it is. Both are caught in a prefabricated theater of interpretations. You are constantly filtering your natural life through the moral concepts provided by your culture, turning simple biological facts into heavy psychological problems. But when you are pushed to the absolute extreme, when you are caught in a crisis where your survival is at stake, all these artificial definitions dissolve instantly. You are forced to discover resources within your own being that you never knew existed. Resourcefulness that precedes all your intellectual reasoning. Another extraordinary story from the sports arena perfectly illustrates what a human entity is capable of when it is forced into a state of absolute, desperate immediacy. There was a legendary wrestling coach named John Mack who was preparing his top American pupil, an immense athlete named Bull Flam, for the ultimate championship fight against a terrifying Georgian wrestler named Ivan Katrovsky. The coach stood in the locker room, looking at his pupil with great gravity, and warned him, "Listen to me very carefully, Bull. This Georgian fighter is a complete terror on the mat, and he has a secret weapon known as the pretzel hold. He has used this specific grip on 27 consecutive opponents, and in every single case, the wrestler was twisted into such absolute agony that he surrendered within 10 seconds. You must remain alert, you must move with extreme speed, and you must never, under any circumstances, allow him to catch you in that crippling pretzel hold. Once you are stuck in it, you are completely finished." The match began, and for the first few minutes, the crowd was on edge as both giants grappled on the mat, neither able to gain a clear advantage. But suddenly, a wave of panic swept through the stadium. Bull Flam made a small mistake, and in a flash of lightning, the Georgian wrestler locked him into the dreaded pretzel hold. The American athlete was twisted into a human knot, his bones groaning under the immense pressure, and he began to moan in absolute, raw agony. The coach, John Mack, could not bear to watch his prize pupil be destroyed, so he turned his back to the arena and walked down the long corridor toward the barracks, his heart heavy with the certainty of defeat. The echoes of Bull's screams followed him down the hallway, confirming his worst fears. But just as he was about to open the door to the locker room, an unimaginable roar erupted from the stadium. A sound so thunderous, so ecstatic, that the coach had never heard anything like it in his decades of experience. The stands were in utter turmoil, and from the screams of the crowd, Mac realized that a miracle had happened. Bull Flam had somehow won the match. A minute later, the athlete trotted into the locker room, completely exhausted but radiant with victory. The coach threw his arms around him and exclaimed, "Bull, how on earth did you get out of that pretzel hold? It is scientifically impossible." Flam wiped the sweat from his brow and replied, "You cannot imagine the agony, coach. He twisted my body in such a way that I thought my spine was going to snap into pieces, and just as I was about to pass out from the pain, I opened my eyes, and right in front of my face, I saw his most vulnerable spot hanging right in front of me. With a last desperate surge of energy, I opened my mouth and bit into that pressure point as hard as I could." The coach gasped and said, "That is unbelievable. But how did that make him release you?" Flam looked at his coach with a wild grin and said, "Well, coach, you simply have no idea what an immense, superhuman strength a man is capable of until he accidentally strikes his own ultimate vulnerability." This hilarious and profound story contains a great meta-analytical truth about human consciousness. when you are twisted by the structures of your society, when you are caught in the pretzel hold of your religious conditioning, your economic worries, and your psychological anxieties, you feel completely helpless. You think there is no way out. You moan in agony, and you look for a savior to come and release you from the knot. But the savior is not outside of you. The energy required for your liberation is hidden within the very tension of the crisis itself. You only need an absolute, desperate focus to locate the root of your own entrapment. And when you strike that root with total intensity, you unleash a reservoir of primal strength that completely shatters the illusion of your bondage. The very mechanism that was crushing you turns out to be the launch pad for your absolute freedom. This total awakening requires you to move beyond the duality of the masculine and feminine energies within your own being, arriving at a state of absolute, neutral clarity. Society has forced you to play a fixed role. 24 hours a day, the man must always be strong, aggressive, and intellectual, while the woman must always be soft, passive, and emotional. This is a very false, artificial arrangement that creates an immense amount of suffering in the world. You are both currents simultaneously. Your energy changes its polarity periodically throughout the day, shifting from the masculine side of logic to the feminine side of intuition. When you look at your breath, you can see this rhythm clearly. When your right nostril dominates, you are in your masculine energy. When your left nostril breathes, your feminine side takes over. To be a complete, mature individual means to flow naturally between these two poles, using your logic in the marketplace and your poetry in the silent spaces of your home, without being possessed by either role. The ultimate peak of this movement is a state of deep meditation where both poles dissolve into an integrated wholeness. In this neutral space, you are neither male nor female. You are simply pure, unconditioned consciousness, a transparent mirror that reflects the reality of existence without any distortion. The priest is terrified of this neutrality because his entire structure of control is based on keeping you divided, keeping you competitive, and keeping you dependent on the social roles he has invented. He wants the husband to dominate the wife, and he wants the wife to torment the husband, because out of that perpetual domestic warfare, a deep confusion is generated in the minds of the children. The children grow up without a true center, full of fear, full of resentment, and perfectly prepared to become obedient slaves in the mechanical machinery of the state and the church. You must step out of this matrix of manipulation if you want to experience the true meaning of life. You must stop treating your consciousness as a commodity to be decorated with social titles and religious respectability. For those who are searching for a direct, pragmatic framework to turn this raw, chaotic life energy into an absolute sovereignty of being, a highly specialized, systematic blueprint has been designed to guide you through the process of deconditioning. You can find our comprehensive guide, The Hidden Energy Protocol, Reclaim Your God Mode, accessible via the detailed descriptions provided right below this discourse. This digital text does not offer you more theories to memorize, nor does it ask you to follow a new set of moral commandments. It is an experimental protocol crafted to help you locate the hidden roots of your social programming, dismantle the mechanics of your guilt, and channel your vital energies upward into the state of the ultimate witness. It serves as a sharp sword to cut through the pretzel hold of your conditioning, allowing your inner sovereign to enter its true, unconditioned mode of absolute clarity and independence. Review the details in the description, explore the protocol, and begin the alchemical transformation of your raw vitality into pure, meditative light. When you are no longer caught in the games of the marketplace, when you are no longer a beggar searching for the attention of the crowd, your entire relationship with existence undergoes a total revolution. You realize that you don't need a purpose to justify your breath. You don't need a destination to make your life significant, and you don't need a priest to guarantee your divinity. You are already an emperor, a unique blossom of the cosmic energy that is fully complete in the here and now. You sit silently under your tree, watching the clouds move across the sky, your heart filled with an unreasonable joy that requires no external stimulus. Your life becomes an endless song, an unconditioned dance of gratitude that spreads its fragrance all around you, transforming your immediate environment into a sacred temple of consciousness. This is the state of the true rebel, the individual who has returned home to his original face and refuses to wear the masks provided by a sleeping world. He lives his life out of abundance, sharing his love, his laughter, and his silence with anyone who is ready to receive it, without any calculation of profit or loss. He is not afraid of death because he has already touched that inside himself, which is timeless, immortal, and eternal. He knows that his physical body is just a beautiful garment to be worn for a few days and then dropped with grace when the time comes. Step fearlessly into this space of absolute freedom. Drop your safe crutches and allow your consciousness to expand into the vast, open sky of your true nature.